We return again to our annual awards show series, where we recap a year's worth of content to distill down our opinions on the best of the best hardware that we've tested. We also like to talk about some of the worst trends and biggest disappointments in these pieces, hopefully shaming some of the industry into doing better things next year, and also building a parts list for our disappointment build that we do annually. This episode focuses on the best gaming GPUs of 2019, with categories like best overall, most well-rounded, best modding support, best budget, and so on. NVIDIA and AMD have flooded warehouse shelves with cards over the past 11 months, but it's finally calming down and coming to a close. Time to recap the best GPUs of 2019, with all the links in the description below for each card. Before that, this video is brought to you by the Be Quiet Dark Rock Slim, keeping a high performance focus but reducing the footprints to accommodate full memory slot compatibility. The Dark Rock Slim comes with one of Be Quiet's Silent Winds 3 120mm fans, built for low noise operation. The Dark Rock Slim advertises cooling capability up to 180 watt TDP, but mixes in a matte blackout color design to combine performance and looks. Learn more at the link in the description below. A couple reminders here, as we do for all of these awards shows. These are not as data-centric as our reviews. If you want a lot of data on a specific model of card, or maybe a head-to-head of two cards similarly priced, then check our reviews for that. We've been uploading them all year. You can search the channel and find them pretty easily. This is more about getting a distilled down list to help people who maybe build a PC once every 3 years or just didn't watch everything for the year to pick their parts. So we could easily just break this into price categories from $150 to $1,300 and produce a list of here's the cards in each category. But we're trying to be a little bit firmer with our cards we like and don't like here for each pricing. And so instead of just doing straight prices, we also broke it down into things like feature set, Enthusiast modding support if it's kind of a project card versus just any old gaming video card. This will hopefully give people on the fence enough information to make a firmer decision and not be wishy-washy between devices. Separately, we're not as focused on which partner models to buy, so this isn't a rounding up of 200 partner SKUs across every video card that exists. It is instead a focus on the GPU itself, although we will talk about the partner models a little bit in here. And then finally, the launch this year is supposed to be mostly done for GPUs now. The 1650 Super was one of the last ones, but AMD is supposed to have some lower end Navi cards coming out at some point in a future that we don't quite know when yet, but there are rumors about it, and it's supposed to be the RX 5000 series, which they did officially announce as well, but it was for system integrators, SI. So that'd be someone like CyberPower, IBAPower, so forth. And those cards might launch in December, might launch in January, or if they launch in December, we don't know if it's a paper launch or a real launch. Either way, for the budget category, just keep in mind that there might be one more device sliding into your DMs before the end of the year. I shouldn't have said that. I hate internet memes. There might be one device coming out before the end of the year. And if you can wait, if you don't need to jump on the Black Friday buying craze, then wait and see what happens in the first couple weeks of December. And if it's not available yet, you can move forward with whatever purchase you were going to make in time for potentially the holidays. But we'll keep you updated on that. Anyway, let's get into the list of the best and some of the worst cards, along with the disappointments and the worst trend, which is, well, probably expected. Our first award is for Best Overall, which we're assigning based on criteria of competitive pricing, good performance in most gaming scenarios, overclocking support, and partner card selection. All totaled, we're giving this to the RX 5700 XT GPU. If we were talking about straight performance, the obvious winner would be either a Titan RTX or a 2080 Ti. But those blow out the budget for most of the user base. The RTX 2070 Super also will get a mention for performance later in the next category, but for this one, we're factoring in how cost-effective the GPU is, its partner ecosystem, and enthusiast modding support, alongside various other smaller items. The RX 5700 XT has a diverse ecosystem of partner model cards that include some exceptional options at prices relatively close to MSRP. NVIDIA, of course, also has a wide ecosystem of partner models, but this is the first time in a long time AMD's really had that, and some of the ones that came out are really good, like the Sapphire Nitro, the Pulse, or even the Gigabyte Gaming OC, which is a rather simple card. The RX 5700 XT Pulse, again, for instance, is one of the best options on the market for 1080p, 1440, and 4K gaming, but it manages to stick close to the actual AMD MSRP and price itself at around $420. At time of writing, we see options for as low as $410, which is an incredibly good deal. The RTX 2070 Super does offer more outright performance, but it's also priced further away, typically in the range of $500. The extra performance uplift isn't really worth it for a lot of users, we think. The 5700 XT also gets best overall for its enthusiast modding support, something we'll talk about more with the 5700 later. Like the 5700, this card can be tweaked with Radeon PowerPlay tables despite AMD's attempts to lock this down, and so it's a fun project card for enthusiasts who want to play around more with frequencies and voltages. 4K gaming at $410 with actually good graphic settings and high-ish frame rates is an accomplishment that AMD can be proud of for this generation. As a bonus mention, although AMD doesn't win outright in the power efficiency category, especially with a process shrink versus NVIDIA in its favor, we'll note that the Navi GPUs are nearing parity for the first time in several generations when you look at price versus price categories. Our next award is for Most Well-Rounded. Most Well-Rounded needs a mix of high-end gaming support, particularly at higher resolutions, alongside overall versatility of the GPU. This includes its performance in non-gaming applications, but gaming-adjacent applications like streaming or encoding. And acceleration in professional applications would also be included in this list. Most Well-Rounded goes to the NVIDIA RTX 2070 Super. The 2070 Super ends up one price category higher than the 5700 XT and isn't as open with modding and OC support, although to be fair, AMD didn't want to be open, it is. But the 2070 Super is generally a higher performing card at roughly 10% uplift on average, although scaling at 4K can grow to about 12 or 13% depending on which partner models are tested. We've also found that, although they've been somewhat overwhelming with frequency this year, the NVIDIA driver updates have typically aligned with game updates and without major issues. AMD's Navi still contains basic issues with tasks as simple as setting a fan curve, and we need to see its driver package improve before we're ready to assign the XT an award for being most well-rounded. It's good overall, hence its receipt of Best Overall Award. But AMD has a lot of room yet to improve in the GPU department, but this category is for the 2070 Super. Aside from its generally advantaged position in gaming, the RTX 2070 Super also offers a suite of useful features for other applications. CUDA acceleration greatly speeds up renders in software like Adobe Premiere and Blender, which have both recently had updates to better leverage CUDA, Blender especially with 2.81, where RTX is getting usage as well. And things like Eevee will be able to better leverage the GPU for real-time playback. Separately from that anyway. The NVENC solution in Turing is also significantly improved over last generation, allowing an easy solution for same system video recording or streaming in instances where CPU resources can't be spared. In testing done by our friend Epos Vox on YouTube, you should check him out, he's an expert on streaming quality, NVEncoder's video quality is a strong suit for streaming and gameplay capture. That said, with the prevalence of AMD's Ryzen CPUs and their oft-overstuffed core offerings, and we mean that in the most affectionate possible way, this type of capture can also be more easily pushed via X264 than before. But NVEncoder is really good right now. Finally, 4K gaming at high settings is accessible on the 2070 Super in most instances tested, as is relatively high refresh gaming at lower resolution. This award is for Best Enthusiast GPU. For this, we're choosing the RX 5700 Non-XT. The 5700 ticks a lot of boxes, but we like it most as an enthusiast tuning card. The 5700 can be modified to approach the 5700 XT levels of performance without extreme cooling by using a combination of BIOS flashes, PowerPlay tables, and of course a good selection of your base PCB and cooler from the partner. The 5700 XT also has PowerPlay table opportunities, of course, but the 5700 can be unlocked past its artificial segmentation lockdown made by AMD with some mods, and that allows it to meet the 5700 XT performance in games which are not bound by compute unit count, but rather bound by frequency. In most games, the 5700 XT, of course, will still lead, and you can always overclock it more, but the 5700 can get close enough that it doesn't much matter. And again, if you just want something fairly affordable in the $350-ish price range, $360, it's a fun card to play around with. The 5700 performs excellently in comparative gaming performance too. In our partner card testing, we found the Power Color Red Dragon to be the best performer given the price, about $360 USD MSRP, but $350 with some of the holiday sales. The Red Dragon also did well for thermals, noise, and gaming performance, with mods affording the headroom required to pull bigger overclocks through the card. All this is to say that the 5700 non-XT GPU is already good, but we like it most for its accidental support, despite AMD's efforts, of enthusiast tweaking communities. It's good enough to buy for normal use, yes, But anyone who enjoys tuning and playing with hardware on maybe a Saturday where you don't have much else to do than research and mess around on the computer, those people should consider the 5700 GPU. One major honorable mention here. We assign these awards based on the literal GPU, meaning the silicon, not the video card or the PCB that's made by partners. We do, however, want to highlight the RTX 2080 Ti Kingpin card by EVGA. If you've got a bigger budget, like a lot bigger, nearing $1,800, and have some startup interest in the type of overclocking we do on live streams, the Kingpin 2080 Ti is the real enthusiast's dream card for 2019. We didn't give it the award since the 2080 Ti itself is not one from this year, and two, the best enthusiast tuning solution, but also because the 2080 Ti Kingpin is already pre-modded. But anyone interested in big overclocks on its stock liquid cooler or with liquid nitrogen should be in line for the 2080 Ti Kingpin. Both Jay's 2 cents and I used this card in a live overclocking battle with liquid nitrogen, and we really enjoyed working with it. It doesn't fit the nature of our awards today, but the card is impressive enough to get an honorable mention, and to really reiterate the points, as we showed in our review of the card, you don't need to be an LN2 enthusiast to still do a lot with overclocking this. The software is afforded to you to bypass all kinds of NVIDIA native limitations, and that's what makes it fun. Our award for best mid-range will go to the GTX 1660 Super. We consider mid-range pricing to be in the 200 to 300-ish segment, but this, of course, is totally nebulous and somewhat subjective based upon an individual's wealth. Older pricing models established a clear high-end at the $500 mark, despite the industry's unfortunate departure from this pricing structure. The closest AMD competitor to the 1660 Super, we think that's what it's called. There's been a lot of NVIDIA cards this year. The 1660 Super's closest competitor would be the RX 590, which is an overclocked RX 580, which is an overclocked RX 480, which is, well, that was actually sort of new, but you get the idea. The 1660 Super is not only more efficient in performance to power, but also able to supersede the 590 in frame rate and frame time pacing in general. The 1660 Super comes with the annoyance of being flanked by NVIDIA's own 1660, which we think is mostly obsolete at this point, and its 1660 Ti, which is definitely obsolete at this point, but only because of NVIDIA's own 1660 Super. The improvement with the 1660 Ti is about 2% to 4.5% on average, maybe 5% every now and then, and that means you shouldn't be wasting headspace even thinking about it. The 1660 Super achieves almost all of the performance of a Ti, but for less money, and the performance deficit isn't even meaningful and is rarely noticeable to the user, despite potential to be measurable with tools. The 1660 Super is an excellent fit for 1080p gaming at generally high refresh rates. It's also a good performer for 1440p, scoring north of 60 FPS in almost all the titles we tested at relatively high settings. We wouldn't recommend the card for higher resolutions than 2560 by 1440 for most instances. If 1080p is more your style, we're giving our best budget award to the last-minute GTX 1650 Super. The 1650 Super is priced at around $160 and manages performance that typically meets the RX 580 or sits within a couple percentage points above or below it. The RX 580 cards are priced all over the place right now, but mostly sit around the $180 mark for 8GB options, with a few offerings at $160. They're becoming rarer, which limits its argument further, but the 1650 Super's rough equivalent with a reduced power footprint and modernized feature set makes it a victor in the budget category. The $150 price point is an important one for PC builders who are trying to maximize performance without exceeding a $500 to $600 total build cost. As compromises are a must at this price point, it's okay to sacrifice higher resolution performance for good value and performance with a 1080p class display. One maybe honorable mention here, we can't really commit to that because we haven't tested it, but AMD is supposed to have some lower end GPUs probably towards this price class eventually coming out. They're going to system integrators first, that'd be companies like CyberPower, for example, and then they'll hit the enthusiast market. But there should be some other RX series 5000 cards coming out in maybe in December for launch, but we don't have firm timelines. It's mostly rumors online right now. Either way, though, a lot of people are buying this weekend next, so we can't really work with a card that doesn't exist. And also, we don't know the availability of stock and won't until it comes out, and it might be more of a January thing for when it's really fully available. But we wanted to put it on your radar in case you can afford to wait an extra couple weeks, because it might be worth it to see how AMD's RX 5000 series launches continue for the lower price class, but we'll have to wait and see. The award for biggest disappointment is split in a two-way tie, with a third as an honorable mention. We're between the AMD Radeon 7, which launched and died in only about 5 months, and the NVIDIA GTX 1650 Non-Super, which died in the second it launched. We dubbed that one as, quote, dead on arrival in our launch day review. The Radeon 7 first. This one was disappointing for a lot of reasons, but the primary of those is that it launched on February 7th of 2019 and slowly vanished from the stores between May and July of the same year. When the Super refresh happened, about 9 months after the initial RTX launch, a lot of people talked about buyer's remorse for initial purchasers of RTX cards. If anything, the Radeon 7 people really need some sympathy right now, because Radeon 7 is something that even late adopters of the RTX series cards can look at and go, you know what, maybe I didn't have it so bad. This is mostly for a good reason for AMD, which is that the RX 5700 XT was able to minimally match the Radeon 7 performance in gaming, but at a price point of $400 instead of about $700. AMD delivered a massive generational improvement in its performance at a lower cost, which is a very good thing, but Radeon 7 was clearly a last-minute shoo-in to try and dump remaining silicon or maybe meet partner requirements with its foundries. Either way, Radeon 7 was born with numerous driver anomalies that were never resolved before its early death, and the only thing really going for it was that it did, thanks to its memory, do really well in some production and workstation applications, and we do have numbers on that for when we did a workstation GPU roundup, but overall, it was a disappointing card. We hardly knew ye. Then there's the GTX 1650 Non-Super, which we said died on arrival for its comparatively poor performance versus the RX 570. The RX 570 is a 2-year-old card that was built on top of a 3-year-old GPU. The 1650 filled a single market, which was small, low-power video outs with extremely minimal ability to process menial GPU loads. Our problem was that this reduced power consumption was largely meaningless for budget buyers, who care more about maximizing performance without stretching their dollars too thin than they do about an extra couple watts. Ultimately, this is a sort of sliding scale with power, and as a card gets lower end, the power output doesn't matter quite as much as at the high end. But it filled one extremely narrow market. The 1650 was not competitive at its ridiculous launch price of $150 to $170. That was completely crazy. So NVIDIA and AMD can share the award for biggest disappointment. We'll cut a cube in half with a Dremel and send one to each office, and then maybe they can combine their powers at CES and kill us or something. Our next award is for the worst trend of 2019. We have these for each end of your recap, and so far, all of them have had the same worst trend category, which is pointless product segmentation. The level of segmentation we've seen in every category this year, all the way down to even PC cases, only serves to confuse buyers and flood the market. You might think that Intel would be uncontested for releasing the Intel Core i9-10980XE in terms of naming, but think again. NVIDIA is trying its hardest to compete. In the past 13 months, NVIDIA has released the following list of video cards: RTX Titan X, RTX 2080 Ti, RTX 2080 Super, RTX 2080, RTX 2070 Super, RTX 2070, RTX 2060 Super, RTX 2060, GTX 1660 Ti, GTX 1660 Super, GTX 1660, GTX 1650 Super, and GTX 1650. Oh, also they released the Quadro RTX 4000, RTX 5000, RTX 6000, RTX 8000, and Tesla T4, but we're less worried about these since they're actually spaced out. Goes to show that the professional community won't put up with the type of thing that the gaming community has to. We think NVIDIA deserves a very firm smack for its desire to dazzle and confuse buyers by releasing a product in nearly $20 increments. Even the survival of different solutions has gotten confusing, with the 1660, 1660 Ti, and 1660 Super, I'm still catching my breath, all still existing alongside each other, even though the 1660 Ti offers between 2% and 4.5% uplift from the 1660 Super. That level of segmentation is completely unnecessary. Our rule is simple. If it's not sufficiently different, it shouldn't exist or it should stop existing. The reason this happens is because NVIDIA has learned that a mere price reduction is comparatively boring and gets less coverage, and so it's just launching pseudo-new products to keep things interesting. We're fine with them launching pseudo-new products, but where NVIDIA misstepped, in our opinion, was its decision to also keep many of the predecessors alive. The company technically killed the RTX 2080 Non-Super, and technically killed the 2070 Non-Super in an official capacity, but then the RTX 2070 Non-Super came back from the dead with thousands of units ordered by some of the board partners recently. The 2060 and 2060 Super were both kept alive. the entire 1600 series has been kept alive, and with about 13 cards in the GeForce line in 1 year, NVIDIA has enough devices where we wonder whether buyers are just getting confused and buying the most expensive card in their budget range to begin with. That'd be an easy solution, after all, rather than spending hours potentially researching 5 cards in a $150 stack. That does count to AMD as well. The only company that has even more product density is BitPhoenix for its Nova, which has something like 26 configurations across a $40 price range. Either way, we'd like to see NVIDIA find a way to produce less confusion in the next year. To provide some constructive feedback, we'd suggest being more aggressive and cutting back the old SKUs as they're replaced. Everyone should be happy then. NVIDIA gets to refresh rather than announce a price cut, which, to be fair, does undeniably get less coverage to do a price cut versus a new-ish card, but reviewers can also stop complaining about naming confusion. Oh, and stop making 1080 Ti's. We get it. We like that card a lot, but it doesn't need 2 replacements. So NVIDIA wins for the worst trend of pointless product segmentation. That's going to be it for this one. Thanks for watching. As always, you can find the links to all of these products in the description below. We also have the article on the website. And further, we're going to be doing more of these. So we've got cases online already, best CPUs online already. Check both of those for help with selections there, especially cases. You probably won't find that in too many places. And then we also have coverage of some additional product categories coming up, like coolers. So check back for all that, subscribe to catch it, and you can go to store.gamersnexus.net to help us out directly, like by buying our GN shirts or mod mats, toolkits, functional products as well, and patreon.com/gamersnexus for some extra videos. Thanks for watching. We'll see you all next time.